Breakthrough win for the Canes? We shall see, but it's a step in the right direction, no doubt, and definitely the best win in the most important win under Mario Cristobal and the ACC saving face to a certain extent over the last 24 hours. Appreciate you being here for the Voice of College Football late night show. We come your way each and every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, either after the game or at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And guess what? On Sunday, working overtime because we had a big Sunday night showdown with Miami taking on Notre Dame. Canes win at 27-24. I thought that they were clearly the better team on this night, on this occasion, not necessarily the better team every day, 365 days a year, but they play once, and Miami was the better football team. Not by much, but I did think that they had the opportunity to pull away several times in the fourth quarter. Their offensive line controlled this game. If they give away a game ball, they get to split it 5 ways for the offensive line for Miami. That was the difference in this game. CJ Carr looked good. He looked better. Well, we will get into that discussion because I think that the biggest narrative that we take away as we get very close to, with only one game remaining, the conclusion of week 1 and everyone having played at least one game, is that these quarterbacks need to be evaluated, and the best teams and the most elite teams in the country, we have much to say about the quarterback play between Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, Julian Sayin, Bryce Underwood, of course, Arch Manning. He has been the focus of criticism, and much of it deserved. And then again, we saw tonight Carson Beck, the veteran, and we saw CJ Carr acquit himself rather well, in my opinion. All right, let's get right to the phone lines here at the Voice of College Football. The most important thing that I will state on this night is that the Amazon link is in the description section of this video and all the videos. I am not encouraging you or asking you in any way to shop on Amazon. What I'm asking is that when you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. Why keep more money on the $3 trillion pile of cash over there? Give us $3 or $4 here at the Voice of College Football. Please use the link that we provide when you shop on Amazon. Also, consider my wagering advice, my predictions. Again, I do not encourage you to put any money on any football games. But if you would like my predictions, you can find those on the premium tier right here on the YouTube channel or on Patreon on the premium membership. And I did miss this Notre Dame-Miami game. I got the game earlier with South Carolina and Virginia Tech against the spread. So I believe I am a fine 15-7 against the spread thus far this season. You get 20 to 25 predictions from me per week, and then you get the selections from Steve Days, Corey Bratta, and Matt Zemek, and also Steve Merrill's Under the Radar selection exclusive here to the Voice of College Football. Let's get right to the phone calls. And I would expect we would hear from some Miami fans tonight. But we've got a Purdue fan glowing in the basking in the glow of a 31-0 win over the mighty Cardinals of Ball State.
Hey, Mark, good evening, sir. Or should I say, yeah, how you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing great. How are you, sir?
I'm hanging in there. I'm not going to talk about that, but I want to talk about more yesterday. Which game or games disappointed you? Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, or Clemson, LSU? And was you surprised about the game tonight?
What games disappointed me?
Notre Dame?
What do you mean they disappointed me? Disappointed me in terms of the outcome, or the style of play, or the level of play?
All three.
Well, in terms of the outcome, the one that was most surprising by far, I don't think that this can be argued, would be Florida State beating Alabama. I can't say that I was stunned, like I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime, but I was surprised. I thought Alabama was going to win comfortably by a couple scores, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. Basically, Florida State won in the manner that I expected Alabama to win. The Ohio State-Texas game was not a work of art. It was not a masterpiece by any stretch. So I guess you could say that that was a disappointing game from the standpoint that it was not a classic. It was not a write it down in the history books. We will remember this 20 years from now that number one played number two in the shoe, unless one of them marches on to win a national championship game, and that will be a footnote that they played the other best team in the country, and they either won or lost the game. But it was not a scintillating game, and Ohio State had control of the game. However, they almost gave it up late, and Texas had a chance to tie the game. So there was a little bit of drama after there being no drama. I thought that the LSU Clemson game was by far the best game out of those games. I thought that was a entertaining game. The first half was a bit dry, was a bit slow. Clemson made two really good defensive plays, taking the ball away from LSU wide receivers that were the most exciting plays of the first half. It took LSU's passing game a while to get untracked late second quarter, but I thought LSU just proved drive after drive after drive after drive. They just got better and better and better, and Clemson got worse and worse and worse. I was disappointed in Cade Klubnik and the Clemson wide receiver core because they were so good at the end of last year. They've been playing a lot of football together as four players, three receivers, and Klubnik together, and they were pretty shoddy. LSU gave up one touchdown in that game. And so the LSU defense, that would be the story of the weekend. In addition to Arch Manning, everybody's talking about Arch Manning and that there's something wrong with him. And yeah, he looked bad. Some of that had to do with the Ohio State defense, but he legitimately looked bad. And so I thought the LSU defense was the story of the weekend. The game that we watched tonight, and I also saw South Carolina and Virginia Tech, that wasn't a sterling game, but it was competitive for three quarters. And South Carolina basically made two huge plays in the second half, 65-yard bomb for a touchdown to Nick Harbor and a long kickoff return or a punt return for a touchdown, 80 yards. And then the defense just clamped down Virginia Tech, which is going to struggle all season to score points. And then this Notre Dame Miami game turned out to be considerably the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, I was listening to the commentary. They said West Virginia Tech's quarterback situation gets better. They think they'll be a better team. I don't know how true it is, though.
West Virginia? Is that who you said?
West Virginia. Virginia Tech, sorry.
Oh, Virginia
Tech.
Who was saying that they're in a better quarterback situation?
That's what they said.
Well, he's been a good quarterback. Tyron Drones, he's been the starting quarterback for 3 years. Now, he was hurt much of last season, so he didn't play a complete season. But the kid threw 17 touchdowns against only 3 picks with 1,000 yards rushing 2 years ago. So he can play, but in comparison to LaNorris Sellers, like he is a third-rate LaNorris Sellers. LaNorris Sellers, based on everything that we saw this weekend, was probably the two best quarterbacks in the country for elite teams or near elite teams were Carson Beck and LaNorris Sellers. And Garrett Nussmeier in the second half.
Last thing before I let you go, where was Matt Patricia 2-0 at against Steve Sarkisian and before he went to the Patriots? Because now they're saying he's 3-0 against Texas.
Somebody said he was 3-0 against Texas. I don't know. I know Matt Patricia was the Detroit Lions head coach, and he was the defensive coordinator at New England. Those are the only two positions I know Matt Patricia. I don't know. That these things can be Googled.
Yeah, because they said he's undefeated, something like that. So
yeah, you can Google that. All you have to do is look at his resume.
Because I gotta give Ohio State defense name A for yesterday's performance against Texas. I mean, Texas defense is good, but I was really impressed with Ohio State, especially losing Jim Knowles and not really having much time with Matt Patricia.
You are entirely correct, sir. They almost pitched a shutout.
Okay. All right, sir. I'm having a little bit of issues, but thanks for your time, Mark. Have a good one.
Thanks, Michael. Have a good night. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you all stopping by. We have left the link there in the chat. We will leave it a few more times to make sure that you can find it. And I always apologize for not leaving it in the description section of the video. That's what I need to do. But we are here every night throughout the college football season. We've got our buddy Will ND checking in. And Will, have you wiped the tears from your eyes at this point?
I'm not crying like I did that Ohio State Sam Hartman game, but
all right.
I'm crushed. I mean, I feel like the main issue was, the O-line sucked. That was the first part, like compared to expectations. Now the D-line, I knew the D-line wasn't their O-line was good. And I heard good things about camp about the D-line, but clearly they weren't that good. And my other big issue is the play calling of Mike Denbrock, not just handing the ball off to Jeremiah Love, doing all these screens. It's just too much screens and not enough handing it off to your running back duo that's top 2 in the country.
Well, maybe what you had to say about Notre Dame's offensive line is the reason why he thought that he needed to fool the defense.
Well, they did it too. Like, he could have done more handoffs in the second half. I feel like even every time they ran it with the running backs, I felt like they had decent gains. So that was the frustrating part.
Did they have decent gains? Did the running backs?
I felt like there was, especially at near the end with Price, they weren't really handing it off to Love at all. But I didn't feel like it was 3. I didn't feel like it was like 2 yards a carry. I feel like it was definitely better than that.
Okay. Well, of course, Jadarian Price ripped off a 30-yarder, correct?
Yeah.
At one point. And other than that, they moved a little bit in the running game when they started scoring points in the fourth quarter. But, man, if we would look at the play-by-play, if we went carry by carry for Notre Dame, I think it's pretty rough.
I just felt like they were doing that turnover was coming, that with all the screen passes, because they knew it was coming.
Oh, well, yeah, that and I don't know if I can fault, I think we are too quick to jump to criticism, because I would not fault CJ Carr for not holding onto the ball, because he had two. You need to be able to trust that you've got 2 guys out there and they have 1. And obviously there was a missed block. The one receiver was supposed to block for the other guy, and Damari Brown broke it up. And then we had the pinball deal and the interception. So that was just a great play by the defensive back in getting in there, or a missed block, or both that caused that.
And the other big problem was on that. There's an incredible catch by the receiver, but I just don't understand why Don Schuler didn't attack the ball there. I felt like the corners played pretty well, but like Schuler didn't have his best game.
Well, if you watch too many defensive backs in college football, that's a rare skill for those guys to be able to look back, track the ball, and make a play on the ball.
Just attack the ball. Like, he wasn't even attacking it. That was what was bothering me.
I am charting Jeremiah Love's carries right now. So in the first half, okay, at that point, let me look at, okay, so in the first half, Jeremiah Love had 4 carries.
4 isn't enough for him.
No, it's not enough for him. He had 1, 8, 1, and 3. That was the first half. And then the second half, their first drive, they went 3 incomplete passes, 3 and out. They didn't even try to run. And then they went 11 plays for 64 yards, and they mostly threw the ball. They had 3 consecutive passes. Then Carr ran for 13. Then they had another pass with a pass interference. Then Love ran for 2. He ran for 3. Carr ran for 6. Love ran for 1. And then he ran for no gain. So that's not the best stretch in the world. 2, 3, 1, and 0. Then they had the interception drive where he had an 8-yard gain, and then they threw the pick. Then the field goal drive to cut it to 24-17. Well, no, they went with 4 consecutive passes. Carr ran, then Love for 6. He also, that was the only time they ran the ball they had an 11-play drive, and they only ran the ball to a running back one time. The rest of it was Carr running and Carr throwing. Then they had the 3-play 75-yard touchdown drive, and obviously that was ran in with 65 yards, and then Carr up the middle, then Carr ran for the touchdown. And so the final totals on Jeremiah Love, I think, were 10 for 33. Let's see. Yep, 10 carries, 33 yards. Jadarian Price, 6 for 45, but he had a 30-yarder, so he had 5 for 15, the other 5 carries. They just didn't do the job up front.
I don't know. I feel like you gotta give your best player the ball more than that, but I mean, I do feel pretty good about CJ though. That's why I'm not freaking out.
Yeah, I thought he played great.
He was, he played great. Yeah,
considering.
Especially, yeah, it was his first start. I feel like you can't really play that much better than that in your first start.
I don't know what he really did wrong in that game. Now, obviously, he didn't play perfect. Nobody plays perfect. He missed some throws, but late in the game, I think it would have been, I don't know if it was the last drive. I think it was the drive that they eventually scored on, or it might have been the last drive. He missed somebody down the middle that would have been a huge gain, threw a really bad ball. But I thought he played well. Man, he was running for his life half the time, and they really relied on him in the running game, which with all those sacks, I don't know what his stats would have been. He went 11 carries, 16 yards, but he had to have gotten sacked 4 times. Something in that range. We don't.
So that's why I'm not that angry, but I felt like this was a winnable game.
It was winnable, but from my perspective, of course, it was winnable. It was 24-all with
Miami was better, but I just feel like the coaches
I thought Miami was
had a weird
significantly better, but it was played at Hard Rock, and Carson Beck, I thought played well.
Yeah,
he was on his game. He threw 2 passes in this game that were incomplete passes that I was pretty amazed by, because he was wrapped up and being thrown down and just shucked it. Yeah. And I thought in the moment, what's he doing? He's a veteran. What he knows better than that. And he almost completed both of them. He missed guys downfield by like a foot, like chucking the ball like 40 yards.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he could do that.
I don't know, but coaching staff better get to work this. I mean, the week 2 bye week is coming clutch. I mean, coaches got to get to work and figure out how to make this team play the best that they can. Because I feel
this, Will, was the main reason why I picked Notre Dame to win this game. I had more confidence in the Notre Dame coaching staff than the Miami coaching staff. That's why I picked Notre Dame, because they're battle tested against excellent competition, and because of the coaching, what I thought was a coaching advantage. I heard at one point when they were pumping up the Miami running game in the first half, the announcers, that they said nobody would ever guess that Miami had a better per average rushing attempt figure than Notre Dame did last year. And I thought, well, I don't know this to be true, but Notre Dame's last 3 games were against Georgia, Penn State, and Ohio State. They played slightly better competition. What was the best defense that Miami played last year? Florida?
That's Florida. I mean, you're picking. I don't know. I don't even know, but I don't know. Like this team can go 11-0 down the stretch, but it sucks having to be in that no margin of no error again. But
You don't think they can go 10-2?
I don't know. You would maybe, but I mean, I feel like you should be. I mean, A&M didn't look great, which helps a bit. Like, I don't think we're going to be playing a world beater in them, but
Well, certainly don't chalk that one up as a win.
yeah, but I'm not. I can't do that
Okay.
now after this
All right.
game. And then USC, we'll see how USC does.
This just makes the season more interesting, Will.
Yeah.
Don't look
sure.
past Arkansas.
Yeah, that's true. But coaching staff get to work during this bye week. You gotta get the team playing better than they did.
That is
Especially
actually
the
the
line.
game that I picked Notre Dame to lose in the offseason was the Arkansas game.
Yeah. The most frustrating part of this is I felt like even though he was a freshman All-American last year, Knapp was never that good in pass protection, and then he really just got ragdolled all night by Ruben Bain. And I thought he would at least put up a fight against them, but not at all.
Okay, Will, anything else for us?
No, just wanted to vent a bit.
Of course. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
I'll see you next week at the latest.
If Miami has a big season, then this loss is not going to count for too much. Obviously, you're now rooting for Miami.
I have to root for those fans after this week on Twitter.
Yeah, you got to root for Miami.
Gosh,
you want them to go 13-0.
Yeah. All right.
That's the way the game's played. Unless you win all your games, then you don't need to root for anyone. Just go 11-1. But if you're going to lose another game, then you got to root for Miami and Texas A&M and USC. All right. What is going on here?
Oh, Jackson popped on.
Yeah, we don't have people popping on. All right.
All right. Anyways, I'll see you, Mark.
Thanks, Will.
Have a nice Labor Day.
You too. I appreciate it. All right. Let's keep it rolling here. We've got Slim Shady popping on here. Look at this. What's going on?
What's going on, Mark? How are you?
I am doing just fine. This is the biggest Miami win since
Notre Dame in 2017.
Okay. That's what
I mean,
thought.
you've got it's got to be. That was their last top 10 win, and this is another one. I had a couple of thoughts based off some things that you've said. I've got to put Miami's defensive improvement right up there with LSU's, at least so far this year.
Sure.
And something else that really stood out to me in this game was Malachi Toney. I did not expect him to come out here in his first start, and forgive me for sounding like an Alabama fan, but a 17-year-old taking the field and having the kind of game that he did. That was really impressive to me.
I completely agree. That went immediately in my notes.
Mine as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, the defensive improvement to me has to go up there right alongside LSU's. With their ability to stop the run didn't really faze me, because people that watched our post games last year, I harped on it. Our run defense was fine last year. I think we only had a couple of games where we gave up over 120 yards rushing. I mean, it was top 15, top 20. Yeah, it was all in the secondary. And I said that was going to be the key to this year's team, was secondary. And even though it was Carr's first start, so I'm going to take it with a little grain of salt, I did, outside of the one, I guess you call it backyard play, where Carr started running around and they kind of lost track of receivers, I think the secondary played really well.
Oh, I thought they did too. The only play, well, there was a busted coverage that the drive that Notre Dame eventually tied the game 24-all. There was a busted
Mhm.
coverage that left the tight end there, and he ran for 65 yards. I don't know what happened there.
Like you said, a busted coverage, which
Yeah, that was a busted
happens
coverage.
to even elite defenses.
Oh, sure. It does happen. Now, that's not the time you want it to happen when you're protecting a touchdown lead with 3 minutes left in the game, but it happened. So, but the comparison of the Miami secondary play against a quality team versus last year, I don't want to call it night and day, but it's basically between like a D and a B.
Yeah.
It's significant. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I even gave them a little bit of a pass last year because I'm not sure there's a defense that Kyle McCord couldn't throw on last year. So the fact that Kyle McCord did it or Tyler Shook from Louisville did it, okay, I'll give you a pass for those two. Like those were two very good quarterbacks. Those were two very good offenses. It was the others that bothered me. And like I said, I'm going to take tonight with a little pinch of salt. But Derek Carr, or CJ Carr also impressed me.
He
He
impressed
had
me
a
too.
lot of
Yeah.
poise.
Yeah, he had to take on a heavy pass rush, and man, he had to beat the running game too.
Yes. And that was something else that stood out to me that I actually jotted down was I was a fan of Miami's front seven last year, but I was worried going against this Notre Dame front and those two running backs. And I don't think you can say anything other than they accepted that challenge and met it head on and won.
Yeah, I sent out a tweet with it was at the point that Notre Dame tied the game, and I just said, Miami has been the better team in every which way that I can slice this game. And if Notre Dame steals this game, because it's not like Notre Dame doesn't belong on the same field, but Miami beat them in every which way tonight. Their offensive line against Notre Dame's defensive line, their defensive line against Notre Dame's offensive line. Miami, for as good as CJ Carr was, and probably the only element that Notre Dame had that Miami did not have was, and Carson Beck doesn't need to run most of the time, but CJ Carr had to be a running threat. But I thought Beck was really good. I thought he was on point.
Yeah, that was something else that, I had a concern with Beck obviously not participating in the spring. How ready is he going to be game one? How is he going to pick up this offense? Now, granted, I have a feeling this offense is very quarterback friendly, but I didn't want to try and compare Cam Ward and Carson Beck. Those are two very totally different players. So I wasn't sure if Carson would be able to pick it up as quickly with less time than Cam Ward did. But not only do I think he picked up the offense, I think he kind of proved a lot of the doubters in the offseason wrong, that it wasn't a Carson Beck problem at Georgia. It was a Georgia problem.
Yeah, it was. They dropped more passes than anybody in college football last year. They dropped something like 45 passes. There were two throws that he made. I don't know if you heard the previous caller.
Mm-hmm.
And this got no attention from the announcers. And I don't know if I'm just dreaming this. I need to go back and watch this. But the defensive lineman's throwing him on the ground, and his rear end and his back are about 10 inches off the ground, and he's throwing the ball downfield. And
Yes.
both times he missed the receiver by about a foot. And I was just pretty astonished at those throws.
Yeah, well, even the one highlight reel one by Daniel in the end zone that he caught with one hand, Carson threw that off his back foot as he's getting hit. Now, don't get me wrong. If Daniel isn't there, that's a pick every time, because it would have gone right into that corner's hands. But I think that's another throw that kind of belongs in that conversation that you're talking about. And I remember the ones that you're talking about, and thinking, okay, he's falling down, wrapped up by a defender, and he's just barely off the mark. And I don't think something like that could be understated.
And maybe he felt as though he had something to prove, even though he was injured this offseason. Maybe he really, and again, like you said, it was more of a Georgia problem than a Carson Beck problem. So maybe he just went about his business and figured everything's going to be fine. I'm just going to continue to work, and I'm going to come back from this injury and be the same quarterback that I was. Or maybe all that criticism lit a fire under his rear end a little bit and made him even better.
I think it's probably a bit of both, because I do think there was a lot of talk, especially from the Georgia fan base. And listen, I get it. Every fan base does this. You become the jilted ex-girlfriend when somebody transfers out. That's just what it is with college football fan bases these days. Nobody's any good once they leave. But it's like I tried telling Georgia fans. Statistically, by the numbers, Carson Beck has had 2 of the 10 best seasons ever at quarterback in Georgia history. And I think it was this is something else I don't think can be understated. I don't think he's ever had an offensive line this good to protect him. And I'm not going to say he didn't have the talent at wide receiver that he has at Miami, because they still recruited well.
Oh, yes.
But he did not have the production at wide receiver at Georgia that he has at Miami.
Not at all.
But part of the reason I say both can be true is because, or I say it's a bit of both. The other side of that, you look at the way he played tonight. Outside of a few times trying to just really push the ball down the field, all night he was just taking whatever the defense would give him. If they gave him something across the middle, that's what he took. If they gave him something underneath, and there were a lot of dink and dunk passes that turned into 12, 15 yards after the catch. The other thing that stood out to me, even though the numbers aren't flashy, and I think it was actually a really good strategy on Shannon Dawson's part, a little old school football. They just ran it up the middle all night. They weren't trying to outspeed Notre Dame, which Miami's, in the history of this rivalry, has mostly been able to do. I think they were playing the long game, a little old school smash mouth football, and we're going to run it right down your throat all night, and we're just going to keep running it down your throat all night. And I think that's where Notre Dame went wrong. And you were alluding to it earlier. They saw the run wasn't working and they got away from it. And I don't think you can do that. Not with that. I've never understood why coaches are so quick to throw a game plan in the trash if it doesn't work in the first or second quarter. I'm all about, maybe it's because I'm older. I prefer an older style of football. I like playing the long game. I like wearing down a defense, and then those 2, 3, 4 yard rushes in the first and second quarter turn into 7, 8, 9 yard rushes by the end of the third into the fourth.
Sure.
And I think that's what the other thing Miami did tonight was, and you saw that with Jordan Lyle and Mark Fletcher. They never stopped running it at them. And late in the game, Notre Dame didn't have an answer for it.
You found yourself a kicker too. So I would say, Slim, that I was a bit surprised because they trotted out this Carter Davis for the first kick, and they said he was 4 for 11 at FAU. And then I was aware that they picked up Bert Auburn. And I'm not going to push him as one of the best kickers in the country, but he had a decent career at Texas. in particular. And I think if we looked up his numbers, he was around 75% kicking in big games. So I thought, well, they obviously watched these two guys kick in practice. I didn't, but if you would just go by track record and experience, obviously Auburn should be the kicker. So I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. And then even though they botched the first snap, it obviously didn't unnerve him, and he just went about his business and nailed the other 3 kicks. So
yeah, which was a concern I had losing Borgalis, because between him and his brother, that's not really something Miami fans have had to worry about for the past 4 or 5 years. Between both Borgalis brothers, both of them were pretty much automatic. And I actually had the same thought at kicker as you. I'd give him a mulligan on that first one. It was raining, wet field, wet ball, things happen. Okay. I've got to give him credit, like you said, for not letting it rattle him. And then they threw, and of course, the announcers tried to put the announcer jinx on it, and they threw up a stat of him. I think he was like, what'd they say, 1 for 6 or something like that on game-winning kicks in his career, and he went down, and that last kick that he hit to give Miami the lead probably would have been good from 60 plus. Yeah. That's something I've tried to tell Miami fans a lot, doing your show and others. We all get our opinions as fans of who we think should be in, who we think should do whatever, but we're doing that based off very little information. To your point, we don't see practice because these coaches keep practice like a well-guarded secret, and they only let the media let them see them run drills and stuff like that. You don't really get to see much. So I try and take the coach's word for who's the best player, because just because we don't have that information. Oh, sure. We don't have nowhere near the information that they do.
Absolutely. All right, Slim Shady Canes, congratulations on the win tonight, and appreciate you stopping by.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on.
So for those of you watching on the Miami channel in particular, we had a situation where we have a few guys that are doing a show for us throughout the week and had expected them to deliver on the post game, but you're stuck with me. So we hope to get that cleared up for games 2 and through 12 and beyond for Miami and Notre Dame as well. But and for those of you watching on Twitter, so we only have about 30 people watching on the main channel. I don't know how many watching on Notre Dame and Miami, but there's about 300 plus total. So for those of you watching on Twitter, on X, the reason we start the show on there is to obviously gain some exposure and let you know that we're here on YouTube, but you cannot comment if you're on X/Twitter. So join us on YouTube. And we are going to cut off that feed on Twitter here in just a minute. So join us on YouTube on the main channel, and you've got the link. It's on my Twitter account. You can find it pretty easily. I think you can go to YouTube and look up Mark Rogers TV or the Voice of College Football, and we pop up there pretty prominently. So it's pretty easy to find. So if you're on Twitter/X, join the conversation here on YouTube. All right, we got Dominic stopping by. Dominic, what's going on?
Oh, man. This game right here, in my opinion, was game of the week. I mean, Miami nearly blew it, and Notre Dame almost came back. What a game this was tonight.
I would agree with you. I think it was the best game that I saw this week, that's for sure. And it certainly, there were like 3 or 4 games that involved. This was only one of 3 top 10 matchups. There might have been some other crazy games among lesser teams, but yeah, the combination of the quality of play, quality of talent, plus it being a down to the wire game, yeah, it was the best game of the weekend.
Oh yeah, definitely. And man, I was just watching the highlights and I saw that amazing one-handed grab that CJ Daniels made towards the end of the first half. Like the way he made that one-handed grab was insane.
Yeah.
He pulled an OBJ right there.
He certainly did. It was a great catch, and it was a huge catch, and he closed off the first half, and Miami had to have been pumped up as they hit the locker room. It was a big momentum swing, and obviously it was 7 points in a game that was determined by 3 points. So one enormous play.
Yeah, and that Miami defense, man, I feel like it's good. That will be the key for the Canes to win the ACC title this year is that strong power defense. I feel like that's what it's going to take for them to win it all this year on the ACC side.
Well, I would think that you nailed it there, Dominic, because I would say that I think it's a given that this is going to be an exceptional offense. They have arguably the best offensive line in the country. They have a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the country. They have 2 excellent running backs, especially Mark Fletcher. They have the wideout ability. They're loaded on offense. They are loaded on offense. Yeah, it all comes down to the defense, which of course was pretty horrific last year, but they brought in a defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman from Minnesota, who led a top 5 defense at Minnesota, and they hit the transfer portal hard to bring in better players. So by all indications tonight, they got a lot better on defense. You know, this, I don't want to jump the gun, but the way they look tonight, they look like beyond an ACC contender. They look like a national championship contender. Now, I'm not saying that, everyone. I'm saying based on tonight's play, that's what they look like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I honestly wouldn't jump the gun, honestly, either. But obviously, great performance by both teams tonight. I felt like Notre Dame for a second was going to come back and win, but CJ Carr, man, just giving up those sacks towards the end is what sealed the deal for Miami.
For sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Dominic, anything else on your mind?
Nope. That'll about do it. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being here, Dominic. Have a good night.
Thank you.
We keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Just a few programming notes. We do this every night. So if you're joining us tonight, you might as well do it each night of the week, or just keep that in mind. 10 p.m. Eastern time, unless there is a game. So when it's Miami Notre Dame, you can be sure that we are going to come on after the game. However, if it's Toledo and Central Michigan, you can be sure that we're going to come on at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Some of those middle range games, we kind of make a judgment call. If it's a really good game, really great game, we will wait for the end of the game. But otherwise, we will be here at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Or even if it is the caliber of Miami Notre Dame, but it's 42-7 in the fourth quarter, we're going to come on early. So be expecting us each and every night, Monday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern, or after the primetime game. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, and you probably get tired of me saying that. However, this channel and our network will partially survive based on the Amazon income, which is basically zero right now. So we would ask that you would support us by shopping on Amazon. When you do shop on Amazon, that you use the link that we provide in the description section. If I produce one day a parting video, I'm probably just going to show a blank screen. It's going to be just a black screen, and I'm going to put the words Amazon on it, and that's going to be my parting goodbye. That will be the end of the channel right there. That's what we'll do. I will not say goodbye. I will just put Amazon link, and I will put that and just let it roll for like a 3-hour live stream. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. And also keep in mind that my predictions are available on the premium tier, both on Patreon and here on the main YouTube channel. And we are also ecstatic about our merch. So let me post that. And that is simply vocfb.com. Go to vocfb.com. You see the icon at the top of the bar that says shop. You hit the drop down and you can see so many teams that it'll blow you away. 25, 30 teams that we have featured, so you don't have to just go with the VOCFB brand, but marry that with your favorite team. All right, we got Ryan stopping by. Ryan, what's going on tonight?
How's it going, Mark?
It's going pretty well.
Yeah, not for me. I was actually at the game live, so I wasn't able to Postgame. So it was great until it wasn't. Me personally, it seemed like the team came out with a weird energy the first half.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like there was. It almost seemed like Miami wanted it more than Notre Dame did early on, which is weird coming off of a team that all offseason was talking about how they were motivated from the loss to Ohio State, how they kept the pain from that, kind of like how they did against NIU. And you would think that would fuel them, and that didn't look like a team to me that lost in heartbreaking fashion to Ohio State in the national championship, especially with all the stuff that Jeremiah Love was talking about, the delayed, not denied. To me, I walked away from this game, especially in the second half. I thought Notre Dame was the better team in the second half, and I thought that the play calling, well, I get why you would want to kind of be a little conservative with the first-time starting quarterback on the road. Once you realized that game plan wasn't working and that CJ was capable of doing more with that offense that he saw with the Patrick Mahomes style play, where that's just a gamer type play, you got to loosen the reins a little bit instead of continuing to throw. It feels like I saw 20 tunnel screens that game. And eventually Miami just bit on it, and that's what caused the interception.
Well, that seems to make a whole lot of sense. Your opening comment about the energy between the two teams, now that you say that, I tend to agree with you, and I'm not the kind of guy. This is never part of my analysis, or very rarely where I'm the guy that says, I was looking at these players and they look to be kind of kicking the dirt and look to be down or look to be distracted or whatever. And I looked at this team and I looked in their eyes. I'm typically not reading body language. I'm not that guy. But Miami was playing with their hair on fire early in this game. And it looked like Notre Dame was just out there playing, I don't know, Navy or somebody. Yeah. And I can see where you could read into that.
Yeah, I just think, and I agree with everybody that's kind of called in so far. CJ Carr looks amazing. I think you can take a lot of positive away from this game, even in a loss. And I think if you didn't know what you had in Carr before this game, I think you know a lot more of what you have. And I think if you're Denbrock, you got to trust this kid. With the limited playbook he had in this game, in my opinion, he played the best he possibly could. I'm not going to blame him for the pick on the tunnel screen, because I think that was just play calling. I mean, I don't know how much control Carr has, but I'd imagine as a redshirt freshman, he gets the play call and he runs what he's told to run, and that's kind of the limit of it. But I mean, I saw a lot from him, and I think Notre Dame's got a good one. And I think that it depends on how they take away from this loss. You got a bye week, 2 weeks until you take on A&M. Huge one at home. There's a lot to improve on, but I think while we did lose, the season's not over. But you cannot, in my opinion, you can't lose another game. You have to win out.
Yeah, they can't lose another game and just automatically believe they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to need help. They're going to be looking at schedule, and they're going to be looking at their performance versus other teams, and all that's going to weigh into it. They go 11-1, obviously they're safe. They go 10-2, then it becomes a beauty contest. And then they got to hope that Miami has a big season, and Texas A&M and USC and everybody that they played had a good season.
Yeah, and again, ultimately, it felt like even our best players kind of let us down. Moore got burnt on that touchdown before half. He's our All-American corner.
Yep.
Didn't have that happen a lot last year. And, Adon Schuler, who I was very high on, kind of stepping into that Xavier Watts role. That touchdown catch you guys were talking about with CJ Daniels, with amazing catch. But I remember watching that live, Beck getting hit as he threw that. back across the middle of the field. I'm thinking, oh no, that's going to be a pick because I saw more there. I saw the safety bearing down. I'm like, there's no way this isn't an interception. And you watch the replay, and while it is an amazing catch, I don't get what our DBs were doing. They did not play that very well at all. Now you could say Carson Beck put it exactly where it needed to be. But if you're a DB, I just kept picturing in my mind, if that's Xavier Watts, that's a pick. And again, I just felt like there was something off with the team the entire first half. It got better in the second half, but especially on the defense. I mean, the defense, that's not the same Notre Dame defense we saw last year. Credit to Miami because I think they played a perfect game plan. And I actually think they played the game plan Notre Dame should have tried to play. Props to Miami. They proved me wrong. I thought going into this game, we had the better coach team, the more talented team, the more challenged team, and the better coaching staff. And, Miami came out more physical in this one.
Well, fortunately, it's a long season, and a lot of comments are coming in the chat, and I understand, but people are making declarative statements about who's good and who's not, and we all know that this is one data point, and it's a very important data point. There's no doubt about that for teams like LSU and Ohio State and Texas and Notre Dame and Miami that played a legitimate opponent. For other teams, it's a marginal data point because it doesn't much matter because they're going to win regardless. When Georgia goes out there against Marshall. But it's a significant data point, but it's not the end of the year. And you know better than me what was said about Notre Dame after they played their second game of the season last year.
Yes. Yeah.
So things turned out all right.
Yeah, this one definitely is not anywhere close to the NIU game. Obviously, upset about this one. I still think it's a game that ultimately we played, I want to say our C- game, and still had a chance to win at the end. So that gives me confidence going forward, getting A&M back at home. And I think the bye week comes at a perfect time. Get right, work on the offense, and, feed the ball to Jeremiah Love. What was it Ryan Day said in the national championship? Get the ball to 4. Well, we didn't do that in this game, and I think you can't do that the rest of the season. Get the ball to Love and get the heck out of the way.
I hear you, Ryan. Well, we appreciate you being here and hang in there. And it's a long season and obviously another big one next week.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on, Mark. And
of course,
we'll see how this plays out. But congrats to Miami on the big one.
Thanks, Ryan. Have a good night.
Yep.
We keep rolling here at the Voice of College Football. And folks on X/Twitter, please join us on YouTube because I'm going to cut the feed right now. Okay. And gone. Okay. All right. That just knocked out 160 people. All right. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. And once again, look at that fine merch. I know you'll enjoy it. And I have told everybody that has bought merch, let me know if it is not of excellent quality. And all the feedback I've gotten, because I wanted to hear from everyone who has purchased merch, is to let me know if it meets the expectations from a quality standpoint, because we tried to do our best to balance the quality and the price point to make it affordable for as many people as possible. And I think we did a pretty good job because everybody's getting back to me saying that the hats, the shirts, everything, high quality. So check it out. We got our South Carolina host checking in. Lucas, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, how are you this evening?
I am doing well. What's going on with you?
I mean, a little rough weekend for the SEC, but I mean, overall, not a bad low one. LSU finally gets a opening day win. South Carolina's offense finally comes alive in the fourth quarter. So nothing too bad to complain about tonight, but I will say this. South Carolina, you got to find a guy at guard. Rodney Newsom kept getting beat on the inside against a front four that, let's just be honest, lost a lot. Defense that was depleted, and you couldn't move the football. Lenore Sellers was on his feet, kept rolling out. Couldn't really do a whole lot because there's so much pressure. Couldn't get the football out of his hands. The thing about this is that what frustrated me most of the game, Mark, is that I was so shocked that Mike Shula didn't go to the quick game. I was surprised they didn't let Lenoris drop back, do a 2 or 3 step drop back, and get the football out of his hands as quick as possible. Because you started to find a little bit of success when you had those little check downs to either your running back or your tight end, and you were getting 5 or 6 yards a pop. You were getting your running game involved in the red zone when you had Roswell Faison. Thank God he's back on the field. Had a little bit of a nice game, 4 yards a carry. Same with Oscar Attaway. You went away from that, but overall, win's a win, but lots of work on up front.
Yeah, I saw every play of that game. Obviously, as you well know, they came out firing, and Virginia Tech had obvious issues picking up coverages because guys were getting lost, and they had 3 straight plays where Sellers just basically dumped the ball off, and guys were running free, and they went for 75 yards and the touchdown, and then they went 4 consecutive series with nothing until that final drive in the first half. And obviously, I think you'll agree with me that any reasonable football fan believes that these rules are ridiculous about catching the football, and that Nick Harbor made a legitimate football catch.
Yeah, that's twice that's happened. First one was with the Berrien Brown situation.
Yes.
And now you have the Nick Harbor. Berrien Brown makes a catch. He's inbounds, crosses the pylon.
Yep.
Done deal, touchdown, makes a football move.
Yep.
Same thing that happened today. You either have to go into the offseason, you got to change the catch and rule, or within this, I put this tweet out, when we get this new Super League that's supposedly being proposed, if this does come to fruition, once the NCAA is officially abolished, maybe we can determine what a catch is in college football. But overall, I mean, SEC got to had a little bit of a 500 type weekend. You got 2 massive wins from South Carolina, LSU. 2 pretty embarrassing losses. Texas doesn't have their offense together. Sark's got to get better with play calling with a young quarterback. Alabama got to do some soul searching in that defensive locker room. You are a soft program. You are a soft football team. And many people don't want to hear that, but I got to be real with them, Mark. You may disagree with me. That's fine. But from what I see on that defensive side of the ball, you are a soft program. It's either got to be a change of personnel where you got to hit the portal harder than you did last year, or you got to get rid of Kane Womack and this entire defensive staff. So that's my thoughts in this weekend. Mark, have a great rest of the show, brother. Take care of yourself. Get some sleep, dude. You've been running on what, 4 hours of sleep. I've been seeing you on these live shows, 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, golly, why is Mark up here so late? Mark, good to see you again, brother. We'll talk soon.
That's what we do, man. And just to make sure before you leave us, I want to make sure that everybody's aware. You'll be on Monday night at 8.
Yes, we'll be on tomorrow night at 8, and we'll be on Wednesdays at, I think, same time.
Okay,
8
everybody.
Eastern time, 7 Central time. Let's make that clear for those that are Central time female.
South Carolina football fans, you got SEC football fans. Join Lucas every Monday and Wednesday. That's on the South Carolina channel. And that's right here at the Voice for College Football. Again, the South Carolina channel, Mondays and Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Mark, you're in Eastern time?
I'm Eastern time, yes.
Oh. Daytona must be on the other side of north near towards that Georgia area, I'm guessing.
Yes, I'm on the coast.
Cool. Good stuff. Mark, take care as always, brother. Have a great night.
Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it. You know, Lucas said something about Alabama, and I got to think that it's a coaching issue. And this is why it's a coaching issue and not necessarily hitting the transfer portal is going to be obviously not going to help this year. But and this year can still be saved. So let's not throw away the Alabama football season. First of all, they lost. They lost in surprising fashion. They did not look good. It's not like they lost to, we don't think, one of the top 5 or 10 teams in the country. We don't believe. I am raising my expectations for Florida State, which I picked to go 8-4 anyway. So I didn't think Florida State was going to be bad this year by any stretch. Thought Alabama was going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. They lost by 2 touchdowns. They got outrushed like 260-80. That's what's alarming, is that they got just manhandled up front on both sides of the ball. Couldn't run the ball. No Jam Miller, but still, Alabama usually 3 or 4 deep at tailback. Couldn't run the ball. Couldn't stop a Florida State running back game that was atrocious last year. And of course, had that incentive of shoving Thomas Castellanos words right down his throat and couldn't do that. So I'm going to play it somewhere in the middle. Do I think that Kalen DeBoer should be pushed off a bridge right now? Of course not. He's an excellent football coach. Maybe he will turn out not to be the right fit for this football program. I don't know. Right now he's 9-5, and that does not cut it in Tuscaloosa. On the other hand, yeah, changes do need to be made, but it's too late in the season to do much about it in regards to coaching changes. But you got to think it's a coaching problem, and I'm not talking about DeBoer necessarily as much as I'm talking about, like Lucas said, the defensive coordinator, Kane Womack, in particular, because this roster's loaded. Their roster is loaded. So it's not the players, it's the development of the players, and it's the scheme. They have a good enough roster to beat Florida State. They have a good enough roster to go 10-2. All right, next up here at the Voice of College Football. What's going on? Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, Mark.
You're on. Who am I talking to?
Oh, this is Mooley.
Mooley, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just going off the Alabama thing, too. I want to also mention that, again, this is a new season, completely new Florida State team. And just a lot of things different from compared to last season. But if we're just going back to last season, right? Alabama was 3-3, if I'm not mistaken, on away and neutral site games.
Well, they lost at Vandy. They lost at Oklahoma. They lost at Tennessee.
Yes.
And then they lost the bowl game.
And the bowl game.
So they lost 4 games.
And now you also have a road loss at Florida State. Whereas, at home, you had the huge win at Georgia. Right? So I don't know what it is, but do you think maybe somewhere is just preparing to get ready for these road environments too? Because we could all see how intense the environment was at Florida State, but even if we go back to last year, the Oklahoma environment too, not at the same level, but it was a true road game. All these road games, or even the neutral site games, what is keeping Alabama from performing at the same level that they do at home?
So I'm not discounting what you're saying because those are the facts. But let's throw in that they did win at LSU by 4 touchdowns. So they went to Death Valley and won by 4 touchdowns last year. So there was one decent road win.
Mm-hmm.
I can't answer that question. I don't know. I would think that Kalen DeBoer, with all of his head coaching experience, especially in the big time at Washington for 2 seasons, going to Oregon and winning that game in particular, going to USC and winning, going to Michigan State winning, and other locales in the Pac-12, and then winning a playoff game on the road or a neutral site against Texas, that he would know what he's doing.
Right. And I kind of forgot about the LSU game. I kind of chalked that up to was, if I'm not mistaken, LSU's defense was abysmal against running quarterbacks last year, but I could be wrong. And that was kind of just really what tore them apart.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah. Right. It felt like they didn't put like a QB spy for most of the game, and Milroe just ran through, but that's besides the point. Yeah, I agree. It's about the last guy's point where, well, for one, you got dominated on both sides of the line. And at least offensively, you could say there were a couple new guys, like Jaden Roberts went injured, and then I think, Vandermark was in and out with an illness. And then Ty Simpson's new. You still have a lot of returning receivers, but the fact that your defense is so loaded with all the talent that they had, even though you lost some guys like Jihad Campbell, you still retain guys like LT Overton and Keon Sabb. He actually had a pretty decent game in terms of stats. He had a sack and a tackle for a loss, if I'm not mistaken. But besides that, I don't know what just happened in that game. And in terms of what is it gonna be like, you had, I heard people mentioning, oh, maybe if Tim Keenan comes back, but you still had all your other players on your defensive line, so yeah, and you let Florida State run over you, especially since after, and it's crazy because the first drive, Bama, if I'm not mistaken, Bama's first drive, they almost all their rushing yards came on that first drive alone. And then after that, their rushing attack was completely halted to where, as the game started going on, they started just really having to rely on the passing game, and just that's why Tide dropped back 45 times to pass as well. But yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it either, because I drank the Kool-Aid of that Nick Saban handed Kalen DeBoer a good roster. That I guess the only downside is that they really have not acquired a large group of high caliber transfer portal players. So they have been the one team out of the elites, other than Clemson, of course, that has really not made great additions in the transfer portal. I'm not saying that they haven't picked up anyone of value, but not game-changing kind of players in the portal. But Kalen DeBoer was handed a good roster. He did lose some of it. He's recruited extremely well. Obviously, those players, most of them aren't ready to play on this team this season. They're going to be projects down the road if they can hang on to them. But I bought into the Ty Simpson's been in this system for a long time, both with DeBoer for a second season, but also just at Alabama. And he was a high recruit. And if he won a quarterback battle against a Keelan Russell, who's a 5-star, and also Austin Mack, who's a former 5-star, then he must be really good. And they're bringing Ryan Grubb back from the NFL, who obviously had all that success at Washington with DeBoer, that they would be able to put together an offense, especially with Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams at wide receiver, that would scare some people.
Yeah, and mentioning the receiver room, Bernard, you mentioned in, I don't know if it was early in the stream or in the recap, that Bernard was the best receiver. He had like 150 receiving yards, but also I don't know what the plan was, because there were quite a few throws where they basically ran Williams as like a decoy, right? And they had, where especially when they had like their receiver bunch on the side where they were lined up together, they would have there were a couple plays where they had Williams run further down the field and like basically have Bernard kind of stop so that he would take so that Williams would take the two defenders with him and create openings. And I'm just like, okay, is it also a game plan thing? Because, they also got Isaiah Horton from Miami, and he had one catch. I think he also did go out for a little bit in the game, but he came back. So, you have these guys. Yeah, the offensive line had some bad plays, but there were there were also a few plays where when Simpson had protection, he could throw it. I will say Simpson, the few plays where he was throwing on the run, he was horrendous, where there was like a wide open guy and it just seems like he has no coordination on the run. So maybe that could be something too. But yeah, I think there's a lot to figure out, but it's like you said, I don't think it's over. I think it's pretty far from over.
Yeah, well, we don't know. So I am not making a proclamation that Bama's fine and they're going to be fine and come back, because they're Their schedule is pretty treacherous. It's difficult. They don't have any give me wins in the conference. But at the same time, I'm also not saying, that I'm giving up on a head coach who's been successful and on a roster as talented as what they have. So,
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. We'll see. And I'll ask one more question and then I'll hop off. So, given Miami's performance, uh, how do you feel about them going forward in terms of? I guess my thing is, I'll go ahead and say this. So Miami's, in terms of like when you look at the rest of their schedule, I don't think they're going to face any defense as good as Notre Dame's.
true. Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of Notre Dame's offense, yeah, maybe they probably would face a better offense. I don't know, but I don't think.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida. If Lagway stays healthy, that's the only one I can think of. Or they play. Who's the other ranked team? SMU.
I guess we're going to see how good Florida State is.
True. Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you think of Miami? Do you think, based on this performance, for one, Carson Beck, is he one of the best QBs? Has he cemented himself yet? And two, is this looking like a playoff caliber team, even from just this 1 week?
Well, I think Carson Beck was one of the top 5 or 10 quarterbacks in college football 2 years ago. And then even last year, he was a top 20 quarterback who suffered from fairly poor pass protection by Georgia standards.
Mm-hmm.
A run game, not to discount also the deterioration of the Georgia running game because the offensive line wasn't as good. And then, of course, the well-documented most dropped passes among power conference teams. All you have to do is take the 45 to 48 dropped passes and cut that in half, and he's got 25 more completions, and his yardage jumps, 15 yards times 25. He throws for another 400 yards. His completion percentage goes up a few points, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying that he didn't have an off season or that he did not have the season that he did in 2023 because he wasn't as good, but there were other contributing factors. He also didn't get to finish the season in playing the second half of the SEC championship game. And maybe if he plays against Notre Dame, maybe Georgia's playing in the national championship game. So I think Carson Beck's an excellent quarterback. I produced a video going into last season because I thought it was premature and ridiculous and a bit strong that I couldn't find an NFL draft evaluation that did not have Carson Beck as the best quarterback in the country. So I didn't agree with that either. I didn't agree that he was that good. But then here 12 games later, after he throws 28 touchdown passes and 12 picks and has a marginal season, he goes from best quarterback in the country, going to be a first-round draft pick for sure, top 10 player, to he's horrible. So I don't believe either to be true. I think he's one of the top 5 to 10 quarterbacks in the country again. And I thought he played exceptionally well tonight.
No, agreed. That we could go on about the Florida offense too. I mean, not the Georgia offense. Yeah, I'm pretty sure every game you could find like an Arian Smith drop.
Oh my goodness, Arian Smith. He not only dropped passes, he didn't even know how to approach the ball. I don't know what happened to that guy. Like he was jumping up for passes that were like belt high.
Mm-hmm.
Just strange. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy he's in a better because Carson Beck clearly has the talent. But regardless, I think as good as Carson Beck was, even in like the mid game, when they wanted to drain clock. I want to say, what was it, in third quarter when they had like a 7+ minute drive, and Mark Fletcher was also running the ball pretty well too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for us?
No, that's all.
All right, Muley. Appreciate you calling.
Thank you.
All right. Speaking of which, since we're on the Carson Beck train, I think our buddy Adam's just trolling at this point. He says, Mark, Carson Beck has no class. He was underwhelming tonight and merely a game manager because he is still heartbroken over the girl. After this weekend, LSU looks like a national title contender. Well, so I'll deal with the second statement first, that LSU looks like a national championship contender. They did look like a national championship contender, but then all that has to happen is that Florida comes in a couple of weeks and beats LSU, and then everyone's going to be back on that LSU's overrated and Brian Kelly doesn't know what he's doing. So LSU is going to have their issues this year at some point. They have, quote unquote, fixed their defense. It certainly looked like it on opening night. I do think that they're a team to be reckoned with. I picked LSU to go to the playoff. It's on record. I stated it here. It's out there. It's documented. So them beating Clemson was no big surprise to me. I put that on my LSU record for the season in calculating their wins and losses. A win against Clemson. In terms of Carson Beck, I think you're just having fun with me on that one. Yeah, Carson Beck had an excellent game. I don't know that Carson Beck did much wrong in that game. Every ball that was incomplete had to be incomplete because there was a pass rush. Look at that first touchdown pass that Carson Beck threw. He was standing in the pocket, dead center in the pocket. Pass rush came right at his face and at his right side, and he backpedaled in the pocket and threw the ball while he was backpedaling, and not only threw it perfectly, but he actually drove the wide receiver and led him away from the defender to drop it right in from like 30 some yards away. And I'm sure if I rewatched the game and went through every Carson Beck throw, all 28 or 30 throws that he had, I'm sure he made a few other ones that weren't quite as good. Of course, he's a college quarterback. But man, Carson Beck played an excellent football game. Carson Beck, the two best quarterbacks. So we had a number of marquee matchups, and I think there's a definite narrative, especially after last night's games, that, wow, who's going to play decent quarterback this year? Because Cade Klubnik was lousy. Arch Manning was lousy. Julian Sayin was fine. He didn't do much of anything because he wasn't allowed to. The game didn't come to him, but what he was asked to do, I thought he played a really good game, but he didn't have to do much. So we'll wait on Julian Sayin until they go to Washington in a few weeks. They got a trip to Washington. They got Illinois. Those games are coming up for Julian Sayin. Bryce Underwood, I've not seen. I will have to check him out. I did not see him throw any pass. Well, I saw him throw one pass that almost got intercepted in the end zone, but he apparently had a good game, 21 to 31 for 251, I think were the numbers. Garrett Nussmeier had his issues early in the game, but I thought he played really well and just continued to get better and better and better. And he and those wide receivers, they started to connect. Aaron Anderson in particular, Chris Hilton. Yeah, so my ranking right this second, based on what we saw this weekend, of those top quarterbacks that play for top teams. I'm not saying that this is the list of the best quarterbacks in the country. I'm saying these are the quarterbacks that played in the big games this weekend. Is that Nussmeier's number 1, Beck's number 2, Sellers is 3, Sayin is 4. Well, I didn't see Underwood, so he might be 4. He had better stats than Sayin, but he threw the ball 11 more times. Sayin had 4 drops against him, too. He should have been 17 of 20. Anyway, Sayin 4. That would make Oh, CJ Carr was really good. I would say CJ Carr, just because he had to do so much more than Julian Sayin. I would put Nussmeier 1, Beck 2, Carr 3, Sayin 4. Am I missing somebody? Then Sellers Sayin. Then it doesn't really matter. I guess Klubnik, then Manning, but they were the two worst. I think I got all of them in there. So again, out of the big games that were played this weekend, that's how I would rank those quarterbacks. But Nussmeier, Beck, and Carr were all really good. And Beck's played 25 football games. Obviously, Carr's played 0. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. All right, let's get back to the phone lines. We got Hunter checking in tonight. Hunter, what's going on?
How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing well.
Well,
And,
go ahead.
what do you have for us? I know that if I'm not mistaken, you root for Florida State and you root for Alabama.
That is correct. On Saturday, Florida State was public enemy number 1.
Okay.
But so I'm going to approach this call with 2 different lenses. First through the Alabama lens, and then second through the Florida State lens. You kind of talked me a little bit off the ledge there, in the little bit you talked. Here's what I think. I think this whole thing is a Kane Womack problem. And because I think his scheme is a little bit too complex and too convoluted. And I think he's trying to get too fancy with the scheme instead of just focusing on tackling the ball and having guys fall all around. And I gave him the benefit of a doubt last year, but this just more solidifies that for me. This defense is very convoluted. I don't know what is. I don't know. It just something's clear to me that the defense is something's very, very wrong, and we're not playing with very much physicality. And I don't think that this was a. Ty Simpson's getting a lot of the blame here, but he makes some mistakes, of course, but also our receivers drop some balls, so it's not all on him. I just don't know what to make of what I seen Saturday. I mean, I'm just still in utter shock, because this is not what I anticipated going into this season, and I just don't know what to make of this. I just dumbfounded.
Yeah, I bet you are, especially considering who you were playing and how they played last year, and that there was really no reason to believe that they were that significantly better. Nobody's expecting Florida State to win 2 games this year. We knew that they were better and going to be better, but that they would beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns was not anything that most people were expecting.
And we had a chance to get back in the game. We had 3 chances to get back in the game and make it to make something of that game, and we just let the opportunities just slip by us. I don't know if you know who Jimmy Stein is, but he's a contributor at Bama Online, and he made an observation in this game that I didn't. I started making this observation late in the game, but Alabama played a lot of players, and Nick Saban didn't do that. Nick Saban, he didn't believe in substituting tons and tons of guys, and Alabama played a lot of players on defense. And I maybe that contributed to some of it, because there was no, clearly defined guys who were out there to make the signal calls and make sure everybody was set, and It just seems like at some point in the game, we just started throwing players in there just because we were trying to throw something at the wall to see what stuck.
Well, I hope that they've got a better plan than that.
And his game plan, the defensive game plan didn't make any sense to me.
Because if you look at the truly great defensive lines of the last 10 years, 15 years, when teams really started to rotate to try to keep guys fresh, obviously Alabama would be one of those teams that has fielded some of the best defensive lines in the last 15 years, along with Georgia and Clemson. And that's when it makes sense when you have very similar talent and ability rotating through. But if you don't, then you still have to rotate them to a certain extent, but you go with your best players when you're playing in a tight ball game. But I don't know what their rotation was. I wasn't paying that close of attention to the game to know.
Well, he made that observation, and I just thought that was interesting. And another thing is on this. So we've seen this at Vanderbilt where Diego Pavia kind of, he was a runner. And so you would think that, and Kellen DeVore said it earlier in the week, they scoured through a lot of Gus Malzahn tape to prepare for this game. Well, Kane couldn't answer the running quarterback. Even Nick Saban teams had problems with running quarterbacks, but this was just a different level. I mean, he just had no answer. I mean, it was just like zero answer for this. And so it makes me wonder, what tape were they looking at?
Well, if you've noticed, ever since the running quarterback has been a thing in college football for the last 15 years, and it has obviously always been a thing to a certain extent, but specifically guys that can run and throw, everyone has trouble with a running quarterback. Now, how much of a problem do you have? Do you get completely nobody wants to face a guy that is an exceptional thrower, but he can also run like a deer and is quick and can burn you. Nobody wants to face Johnny Manziel or Cam Newton, et cetera, et cetera. But those guys either completely torch teams, or you have such a good disciplined scheme and players that you at least contain them and you work their mobility against them. Because it's only obvious that if you're rushing four guys, they can only fill so many lanes that a very quick mobile quarterback can't find a lane and escape. And when you have really good wide receivers running downfield and they're turning guys' heads, then quarterbacks can take off and they've got green grass in front of them and they've got defenders running the wrong way and with their heads turned. I had that game. I watched most of that game after Florida State had taken a lead. I watched like the second half. And so I didn't really see Florida State, except for that final drive when they iced the game, really tear up Alabama. They had done most of their damage. So, and when you look at the final stats, you really don't see where Castellanos had that remarkable of a game. He ran for like 80 yards.
It was just runs that he made were crucial.
Yeah,
runs. It was just timing. But this is the last thing I'll say on the Alabama front, and I'll kind of comment on the Florida State. Here's my most optimistic view of this situation could be. So we always have one game, and Nick Saban's teams even had this, where we would play about one game a year, where it looked like we forgot how to play football.
Yep.
Last year it was the Vanderbilt game. So hopefully this is just that game. Well, Oklahoma too, but I mean that was
wishful thinking because you had Oklahoma as well.
Oklahoma as well, but I'm saying the Vanderbilt was more atrocious, if you ask me.
Well, Nick Saban's teams, when you say that they played a game every year that they didn't look like they knew what they were doing, they lost that game by one score. They never got blown out, and you know that.
Yeah.
The only time that they got blown out was against Clemson in the national championship game. But Nick Saban teams never, think about how great Nick Saban was. That his last team was probably his worst team, maybe since his first season, arguably, or maybe since 2010 or 2008. Those teams had lost 2 and 3 games, but it was definitely not one of his best teams. And that team should have beat Michigan. I'm not saying that they were better than Michigan, so I'm going to get a bunch of Michigan fans that are going to be mad at me for making that statement. I'm not saying that they were better than Michigan. I'm saying that if one play would have gone their way, like that punt down the field that the Michigan guy botched and scrambled to get, if Alabama recovers that ball, the game's over. There were several times that, and obviously they gave up a 4th down play to Blake Corum. The game would have been over if they would have stopped that play. I'm just saying that they came that close, and they would have beaten Washington in the national championship game. They came that close with one of their worst teams of still being the national champions. That's how good Nick Saban's teams are. So as well as I do, Hunter, that they never lost to anyone and got embarrassed.
You're right. But I'm saying
To
relative
Ole
to
Miss when Ole Miss was hot on that particular night, and they had a really good team, and there were fluke plays those 2 consecutive years. They lost those kind of games. They didn't lose to Vanderbilt. They didn't lose to 6-loss teams. They didn't lose 24-3 on the road to Oklahoma, who lost eventually 7 games. They didn't lose those kind of games.
Yeah, I'm not trying to draw an
Ever.
equivalency. All I'm saying is, compared to Nick Saban's standard, we played one game a year where it looks like we weren't playing up to par. We weren't playing to the Bama standard.
By his standard, yeah.
Yeah.
By his standard, yeah. They looked like just a top 10 team that week. They didn't look like the number 1 team.
Right, exactly. So last year was the Vanderbilt game and as you pointed out, the Oklahoma game, but I think the Vanderbilt game was more atrocious. So So maybe that's just what this is. It's just that one game that we're gonna have where we just look like we've lost all of our marbles, and we can get things. Now the good news is we got 2 weeks to get things back on track. I don't think that Wisconsin is as good as they were last year, even though even though we beat them pretty handedly. I think this will be maybe a slightly worse team.
That's a loaded statement about Wisconsin being as good as they were last year. First of all, they weren't any good last year, but to their credit, they did play a few really good games against really good teams last year. They took Oregon to the wire. They took Penn State to the wire. So they could be good on occasion. But as you well know, as you just mentioned, Alabama dragged them around the field at Wisconsin last year. That shouldn't be a game, but based on what I saw Saturday,
It could be. I mean, it could be. So my hope is that we just have to we got to focus this week and improve. Don't go to that game. We cannot go into this game against UL Monroe and go and just play this like this is just a normal cupcake game that we have every year. We got to go in this game playing it like we're playing Auburn and focus and improve on every down. And that's what we got to focus on the next 2 weeks before we go to Georgia. And so that's the thing. So now, I'm going to put my Florida State fan hat on now. Give it up to Mike Norvell. Everybody was so down on him after last year. And now all the Florida State fans are going to be acting like he's the next coming of Jesus. Now that he,
that's the nature of being a fan.
Right. But I've always been. I wanted to be honest with you, from an Alabama fan perspective, when Nick Saban retired, I wanted us to hire Mike Norvell. That's who I wanted. I told multiple people that before the whole those short little days where it felt like forever. We were searching for a new coach. That's who I wanted. And obviously that didn't happen. But I like Mike Norvell. I think he's got this team. I think this team is going to be better. I think this could be honestly, a top 10 team at the end of the year. If they play like they did, against Alabama. If they play like they did and they play with that much conviction. And I will say this about Alabama too. Maybe Alabama rolled into the game thinking, "Oh, this is going to be like that 2-10 team, and we're just going to mop the floor with them." And so maybe they came in with a little bit too much confidence in that game. That could be a part of it. But this Florida State team, they gave it everything they had, and I think that's what Mike Norvell wanted to see out of his team. And I think this team could possibly end up being a top 10 team at the end of the year if they play like they played, like they played on Saturday.
Well, I don't know if you can see the screen right now, but this is what I sent out near the end of the Florida State Alabama game. And this is the mentality of most college football fans. So I was kind of playing like I was the typical college football fan who would have said the first two seasons at Florida State in 2020 and 21, Mike Norvell can't coach. And then in 2022 and 23, Mike Norvell can coach. And then last season, Mike Norvell can't coach. And then suddenly here in 2025, the first game, Mike Norvell can coach.
Right. I've never been that type of I've tried to be more rational, and that's why you don't see me on here going and calling for Kalen DeBoer's job. Um, and I think we got to be reasonable. But I've always liked Norvell. I mean, I thought he was a good hire when they initially hired him. Now there's no excuse for last season. I mean, there's no excuse for it, but he seemed to turn some things around. Um, and well, like you said earlier, um, back in Alabama for just a second, playing against a Gus Malzahn, team that runs that read option, that's a very hard defense. I mean, hard offense to defend. And so, just gotta give hats off to um, to him to be able to put that game plan together and execute it the way that they did. I knew Castellanos was good. I watched him at Boston College. I knew he was a pretty good quarterback, and he can scramble when he needs to. Um, so I'm excited to see what the rest of this year has in store from Florida State. Um, I think their floor is probably 8-3, but I think their ceiling could be 10 plus 10-win season. Um, Well, I mean, I hate to say this, and this is just the way that I'm feeling right now. Um, I think Alabama, if we continue on the path that we're on right now, um, we could be an eight win team. And I hate feeling like that. I've never. It's so weird because I'm old enough to where I can remember the Mike Sheila days, but I was a little kid. And so for the majority of my teenage and adult life, I've been spoiled by Nick Saban. So I have to, this is new territory for me as a Alabama fan.
If Florida State is not the top 10 team that you think they are, if they're closer to what I expected them to be this year, which I believe I picked them to go 8-4, and Alabama doesn't improve from their performance, you might be happy if Alabama wins 8 games.
Yeah, yeah, you might be. But honest question from an outsider's perspective, do you think that Alabama's going to turn it around and be a maybe not a what we thought we were going into the season, but do you think that Kelly DeBoer is going to be able to salvage the season and maybe be lucky to win 9 games?
I think that if Alabama stays with Kalen DeBoer, the odds are that they will be just fine in the long run. I think that he will be going to playoffs more times than not at Alabama.
I like him. I'm not one of these fans that are calling for his job, but I do think that if the defense doesn't improve, he's got to fire Kane Wommack at the end of the season because what we put on that show that we put on Saturday is just not going to cut it in the SEC. And I don't know if it's too fancy of a scheme and not just getting down to the basics, back to the fundamentals. With Kane defense, I don't know what it is, but something's got to change on defense, and maybe Kalen's got to have a sit down talk with Kane and go, something's got to change here, buddy. And I'm just my mind is still trying to comprehend what happened on Saturday.
So we got the Alabama schedule up here. So if they win the next 2 weeks, they're 2-1, and then they start SEC play. Let's say they lose at Georgia, and then they have Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee, and South Carolina the next 4 weeks. Now,
That's
you talk
brutal.
about a run of games that is not daunting, but the way Alabama played against Florida State and us not knowing how good this team is, who knows what they're going to do against those 4 teams. They could lose to any of those 4. They could beat all of them. They could do anything in those 4 games. Who knows?
We almost let South Carolina win last year.
Sure. And have to play that game on the road. I would, if I were a betting man, I would say that they go 3-1 in those 4 games. So that would put them at 3-2 in the SEC. And then they've got LSU, Oklahoma, and Auburn. So if they go 2-1 there, they're 5-3 in the SEC, and they go 8-4. And that's not a bad performance. That means that they would have beaten LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. They would have won 2 of those games, and they would have won 3 out of 4 against Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee, and South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is fair. Yeah, I mean, I hate feeling this pessimistic, but it's kind of not hard not to feel that way after what happened, on Saturday. And Florida State's schedule is pretty favorable. I mean, you got Kent State, you got Virginia, Miami.
Yeah.
That's probably a loss.
They've got Miami at home, so they're going to be 4. They should be 4-0 when they. But let's understand that again. Let's not. We're going to see so many upsets this season, as we typically do. So games against Pitt and Virginia and Virginia Tech aren't quite as easy as they may appear. Not all of them. Some of them will be. They'll go out there and they'll win some of those games, 35-10. But anyway, let's say they go to Miami or they welcome Miami at 4-0. Let's say they do trip up against Miami. They lose that game, and Miami's just that good. So they're 4-1. This Pitt game is going to be key because Pitt's capable of beating them, but they should beat Pitt. And then they're 5-1, 6-1. Wake is terrible, 7-1. They're going to Clemson, 7-1. And we just saw Clemson lose at home, so that's winnable. But let's say they trip up in that game, and they're 7-2, and they lose at Florida. That's a 9-3 season.
Not bad. Not bad. I mean, I'm very conflicted this season because on one hand, my main team is not looking so hot, and then you got the team that went 2-10 last year, and you feel all of a sudden you're feeling very optimistic about them. So it's a strange world to be in. if you're somebody like me who roots for two teams. So
especially when they play each other.
right, you don't know how well. I'm such a big Alabama fan that
Sure.
I mean, they were Florida State was enemy number one, and I wasn't. But and now after this game, I can look back at that game and kind of feel kind of proud of Florida State for that. So and
Well,
like you
Hunter,
said
the
earlier,
joy of YouTube is that you can always, it's 3 clicks away. You can pull up the 2015 national championship game or the 2020 national championship game. You can relive the glory days at a moment's notice.
you're right, and that 2015 team to me was a special team to me because that's the year I graduated high school, and that to me was the best Nick Saban team that he had. You can probably make an argument for 2012 as well, but
Sure.
those two teams were really really good teams. One more question before I go. Now I know this is so don't take this as an equivalency, but we did see Ohio State struggle at times last year, and they going on to win the national championship. And I'm not saying Alabama's going to do that this year by any means, but um, could we see a situation where Alabama just struggles, early on, and then just surprises everybody and comes back and makes a run that nobody's expecting at this point?
Is it possible? Well, they've got a coach who is proven capable elsewhere, and they've got enough talent on that roster. Sure.
Yeah, like you said earlier, the talent that this team has on the roster is outside of Ohio State, um, probably the best roster in college football.
Yeah, I think based on the rankings, there are 4 rosters that are just far and away better than everyone else based on the team composite that 247 puts together, and that's Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas.
So the pieces are there. It's just a big enough wake up call to everybody, and not just the players, but the staff, to everybody in that program to say, okay, whatever it takes, we got to get our mind right. And if it was up to me, all these Alabama players just stop doing podcasts. They'd stop doing all this nonsense on the side and focus on winning football games because that's what you're here to do. And if that's becoming a distraction, then that's what needs to be done.
Well, that is the challenge of the modern head coach, because you could argue on behalf of these players that they're not there to win games. They're there to make money for themselves. But obviously, if they don't win games, then they're useless.
That's
So
why Nick
I
Saban got.
completely
That's
agree
why
with
Nick
you, but
Saban
I'm
got the
just
game.
saying that that's a difficult sell. That's a more difficult sell than it used to be, that we're all in this together and we all have to fight for each other.
Right, and that's the thing. Like coming out of this, maybe so optimistic about this team going into for Saturday. If you would have asked me, Alabama had nobody to leave after the spring portal, and so to me, that was a really good sign that this team was that brotherhood type mentality. And maybe that's still there. Maybe they just lost their way, but oh, and and that's why Nick Saban retired is because he did not want to live in a world. To him, I think it was he didn't want to live in a world where it was all about the player and not about the team. And I think that's why he stepped aside from coaching because he didn't want to have to operate in that modern college football head coach era that we find ourselves in.
That certainly appears to be what it was, and I don't blame him for that.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and good talking to you again. And we'll talk again at some point this season.
Sounds good, Hunter. Thanks for the call.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
All right, you have checked in at the Voice of College Football on this fine Sunday night. which of course is the only Sunday night of the entire season that we've got college football. And we've got a game on Monday night because, of course, the NFL takes over the next Monday night. And once the NFL starts playing, it's almost like college football disappears for a lot of Americans. So our college football coverage will continue. Hear the voice of college football with your help. The Amazon link's in the description section of this video and all the videos. So please use the Amazon link when you do your shopping on Amazon. And check out my picks. I did stumble tonight picking Notre Dame to cover 2.5 points, but I did pick South Carolina to cover the 7. And so I'm 15-7, I believe, against the spread. I might be a little bit better than that. I do think the number is 15-7 against the spread. So we'll obviously take that at pushing 70%. All right, you can get those picks on the premium tier here on YouTube or on Patreon. Anthony says, Mark, for me, what scares me is this season is Mario's track record of losing a game that he's not supposed to lose and messing up no matter if we do well in the conference championship for the playoff. Yes, that has been his track record. That's been his MO. But if you've got a good enough team and you win enough games, then you can have one slip up. So if Miami's, and at this point, now that Miami's defeated Notre Dame, they are the best team on their schedule against every opponent. Miami is the favorite. They are the best team. Florida is the only team that can challenge Miami from a talent or a projection standpoint. Now, Florida State, they could move themselves into that mix, but Miami is significantly better than everyone else on their schedule. But let's say they take care of business against Florida and Florida State, and then they trip up against whoever else they play. Duke, Virginia Tech, fill in the blank, Louisville. You go 11-1. There are plenty of playoff teams and teams that have competed for national championships that have had an off game and lost to a team that they had no business losing to, but they took care of business elsewhere. This is a significant win for Miami, no question, but they have much work to do. But they have defeated, most likely, the best team on their schedule. I'll be back after the TCU North Carolina game on Monday night. We will talk Bill Belichick. We will talk TCU. We will see you all then. Appreciate you being here.